Welcome to Confessions. I'm your host, Nikki G, and I would like to say thank you for taking time out of your day to listen at today's topic. I have a question before I get started I want to ask. What are you going to do when someone pulls the trigger? Once again, what are you going to do when someone pulls the trigger? Someone asked me that question and I was like, what are you talking about? Of course, I'm going to run. Of course, like most people, you may think of a gun of some sorts, but I'm speaking on emotional and mental triggers. So that is my topic for today. I want to give you some tips on how to handle those things when it happens, and also give you just an idea of what life can be like for someone that goes through life without identifying their triggers. So before I get started with that, let me say it's confession time. Confessions. At one time in my life, I felt like I was a good mom, a good wife, good employee. I thought that my life was just going well at the time. I didn't think anything was just bad. I thought my life was all good. All of a sudden one day, that got turned all the way around. I was under attack. At least that's the way it felt. My marriage crumbled. I ended up going through a divorce. My finances seemed like they were out of order. Every time I turned around, my bank account was at a negative. One of my children, my daughter, she did a 90-degree turnaround. I had to handle all of that. And I had all these different things that just kept piling on me, piling up. And it just broke me all the way down till I was just depressed. And I stayed in a depression for a long time. I just felt beat down. However, I was considered a high functioning depressed person. I still went to work. I still maintained my household to the best of my ability. I still smiled among people. I was still functioning. But little did people know what I was struggling with on the inside. So, like I said, I stayed in that state for a long time. If I had a day off, I would just stay in the house, in the bed. I didn't talk to nobody. I stayed in my room. It was just that was a coping mechanism for me at that time. But one day I decided to get up. I said, you know what? I'm tired of living my life like this. I'm tired of just existing, just going through the motions of the days. I was tired. So my first step in my journey to wholeness was to figure out, why did I keep ending up in the same predicaments, the same type of relationships? Why was my finances always what was going on with me that I kept ending up in the same predicament? So the first step was to self-reflect. The only common denominator, the only common denominator in all of the situations was me. So once again, I had to ask myself, why? Then I learned that I needed to address past trauma that I had been dealing with. That was the only way that I could move forward. I had to learn how to deal with certain emotions. And those emotions were considered at that time triggers for me. And you ask yourself, what is a trigger? Well, triggers are defined as things that may issue a reactivation. Things that may issue a reactivation of a negative or positive experience. There are 3 types of triggers. Environmental. That is social media. Maybe Facebook is a trigger for you. It triggers some kind of negative response in you. May make you angry, anxious. It could be loud noises. It could be something environmental to that degree. It could trigger you. It could reactivate some old feelings that you didn't realize you had until that time. The second trigger is emotional triggers, rejection, being ignored, or just simply just being angry. Emotional triggers. I'm pretty sure all of us have encountered someone that did not handle rejection well. That was a trigger for them. Or being ignored. I know for myself, that used to be a trigger for me. I couldn't stand for somebody to ignore me, especially when I'm taking time to talk to you and you ignoring me. And in the case of some relationships, it will be considered like the silent treatment. It's a trigger. And lastly is physical, a physical trigger, like certain smells, cologne, perfume, food. That could all possibly trigger you to an experience in your past that could have been negative or it could be positive. But we're going to speak on a negative trigger. Now, once you've become reactivated, what do? How do you deal with it? There are two ways most people deal with triggers. The first one I want to talk about is avoidance. We will avoid any kind of trigger. You know, we may say, okay, I'm not going back on Facebook or Instagram because, you know, that's a trigger for me. I seen this person or someone put up a quote and you triggered instantly. So you just decide not to even, you know, go back to these particular places or go back into that past. But this is unhealthy because that trigger is triggering an emotion that you need to heal from. So that is why avoidance is not going to work. You can't spend the rest of your life avoiding things. At some point, you're going to have to confront them. And that's the next way people deal with triggers. You make a decision to confront them. It's like when you deal with them head on, you're allowing yourself to heal at that point. So for me, I will use myself. I would say certain quotes for me, especially on Facebook, I would read and I would just get triggered, you know, anything about narcissistic abuse or something like that, anything to that nature, I'm triggered. I may hear a certain song, I'm triggered. So I just made a decision in my journey to wholeness to stop. And I identified all of my triggers. I took time, and it's not going to happen overnight. You're going to have to take one trigger at a time, one day at a time. So the first step in dealing with those triggers is to identify them and then accept that that is a trigger for you. Because some of us will make excuses, but in reality, it's a trigger. You'll make an excuse not to visit that emotion because, like I said, you're trying to avoid it. But it's best to identify the trigger. Then, in order to build your muscle against that certain emotion, you allow yourself to feel that emotion and then take a few seconds to, when you're reactivated, to think about what you're truly feeling. You know, understand the feeling. You know, this person may have said something to you and it triggered you back to your past. But the individual probably really didn't mean it in that way, but you were just triggered. So you got to take time to understand the feeling. Understand the feeling. And then the next thing is very important. You have to create boundaries. Never allow anyone to take you to a place that you don't want to be. Never allow it. You let people know. You know, you teach people how to treat you. And then you have to learn how to handle yourself in certain situations. When you're reactivated, a lot of us, the first thing we want to do is get angry. We want to get loud. We want to, we want to react. But that reaction that you choose will decipher your journey to wholeness. You know, you're not going to heal if you keep reacting in the same way. So once again, don't allow people to take you places that you don't want to be. Some people will know your triggers. And they want to keep you in that place. And they're going to keep doing it, keep doing it. But once you set that boundary with that person and a boundary with yourself to say, you know what, I'm not going to allow this anymore. You have to tell yourself that, and you have to build your muscle up to that. And you have to stand on it when you make that boundary. For me, I made a decision that I was tired of laying down and I wanted to get up. But once I got up, I had a fight in me, but I needed to know how to fight and what battles that I need to fight. It was only when I started to look at people and their actions with my spiritual lens and not my flesh lenses that it allowed me to grow in the triggering situations, because they're every day. I'll go back to the 3 triggers. Let's see. Emotional triggers. Living in fear. Fear to go forward because of rejection, or fear of being ignored, or just feeling like life just passed you by. That was a time I was a people pleaser. You know why? Because those emotional triggers. I didn't want that person to say, oh, well, Nikki did this to me. I wanted to be accepted. So a lot of times I did things that I know I shouldn't be doing, but I just wanted to be accepted because of the emotional triggers. And it's dangerous when another person knows your triggers. But what you can do is take the power back by learning how to cope with those emotional triggers once you learn what they are. At this point, I want to build your spiritual muscle. Let's see. I chose 2 Timothy 1:7. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind. Sometimes we are afraid of our past and how it may influence our future. Relationships you may be in. You haven't healed from your past relationship, so you bring in those same fears from the past relationship. Oh, this person might leave me, Oh, this might happen or that might happen. You bring in those fears into your present relationship or into your future. But you really can't go forward until you heal from your past. But a lot of us are afraid to revisit the past. And then some of us are embarrassed about the things that we may have done in our brokenness. I will say that it is my belief that no one can say that they have just never been in a place of brokenness, that they didn't do something that was embarrassing, that they knew they didn't have any business doing. Sometimes in our brokenness to deal with things, we may drink alcohol, or we may do drugs, or it may be sex. I mean, it's just endless things that you may do in your brokenness. And there are people out there that would take advantage of you while you're in your brokenness. And that was a hard pill for me to swallow. When I went back and I self-evaluated situations and people that were in my life, I realized that a lot of those people were taking advantage of me while I was in my brokenness. They probably saw my brokenness and said, okay, well, I'm just going to take advantage of her. And that was a hard pill to swallow. So I had to let those people go. And you'll have to do the same thing. But don't be embarrassed of the things that you did in your brokenness, because it made you who you are now. It's just letting you know that if you're embarrassed about it, it's time to get up. It's time to get up and do something about it. And when you live in fear, fear controls your life. It controls your actions, how you function from day to day. And then it controls your decisions. You're not able to make sound decisions. Like I said, you're doing things in your brokenness where you're just embarrassed about it. And for me, I would say my embarrassment came in. I was going to the club. I was drinking. I never was a person to do drugs, but I was drinking. I was hanging out. I was, just doing things I just didn't have any business doing. all because I was broken of things in my past that I hadn't healed from. Was it easy to get to this journey right now? No. I really had to fight. It was several times that I just wanted to say, forget about it. I can't do this. I'm not strong enough. But at the time, I was building my spiritual muscle. And I learned that God has not given us the spirit of fear. He has given us the spirit of power, love, and of a sound mind. So as you're going through these situations and you feel like that you're still scared to get up or you can't get up, just know that God has already given you the power. It's in you. How long can you continue to live your life full of anxiety, confusion, not knowing where to go? You ended up in places that you don't want to be, dealing with people that you don't have no business dealing with. And that was me for a long time. I'm slowly recovering from letting people go. It's a process for me. I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys, oh, I got all my ducks in a row. I'm together. I got this. I got that. It's a day-for-day process. But I am so proud of my journey. I'm proud of where I am right now. And if anything, I want to bring everyone with me. You may be that person that is living in fear, haven't took the time out to deal with your emotional and mental well-being. You're living with these triggers. You in this relationships, that you really shouldn't be in. You dealing with people, you really shouldn't be dealing with. You're doing things to your body that you shouldn't be doing. And you're doing things with your body that are not good. I need you to remember that God gave us power, love, and a sound mind. So now it's time for you to realize the power that you have within, the power that you can move forward, the power that you can go back and deal with all of those emotions that you set on the back burner. You have that power. I also took all of the steps that I just read to you. I identified my triggers. I built my muscle by allowing certain reactivations so I could learn how to cope with them and how to deal with them at the time. And boundaries. I did all of that. The boundaries are so important. So if you're that person and you're triggered, or you feel like you're in a position where you just feel like you're down and you can't get up, this is what I need you to do. I need you to go to internalevolutions.com. I need you to book a discovery session. And within that discovery session, I could possibly help you with the tools that you need to move forward, or give you a roadmap on how you can move forward. Because at some point, you're going to get tired of being there. I started this journey in the hopes to help people that are in the moment where I was. So I took the time out to not only go through the things that I went through, but I also took the time out to study them and research and just talk to people. I mean, I deal with so many women right now that are dealing with emotional triggers, and some of them don't even realize that's the problem, because you haven't went back and revisit the past to deal with those past traumas. But until you do that, you're going to stay in the same position. So this podcast was really quick. I just wanted to kind of get you thinking a little bit about these triggers and what causes them, and, give you some tips on how you could move forward. My healing process, I will say, it has been a journey. It's still a journey. Every day I'm discovering different things about myself. I'm building and networking with different types of people, That's another thing you really have to do when you building your muscle to fight. Surround yourself with positive people, people that are doing things that you may be doing, or that can coach you into doing things differently and better. That you see how these people have gotten themselves back up from a dark place. You want to surround yourself with people like that, because that's what I did for years. Even when I was down, when I would go out, it was only to surround myself around some kind of positive energy. I couldn't be around negative people at that time. I was just too much in a down place. And some of us, when we're down and depressed, we'll get entangled with other people that's down and depressed, and it's a long journey. And then together, that journey it's not good. And I would say I was in a place like that at one time. I was entangling myself with people that were in the dark too. We all in the dark. There's no light nowhere in sight. Now, the light and the dark don't mix. So with that being said, if you're the light of something, then you need to mix yourself with people that's in the light with you. So I want to thank you for listening today. That is all that I have for you today. Once again, go to Internal Evolutions. If you want to speak more about this topic, book a discovery session. That's internalevolutions.com. I want to thank you for listening, and you have a good day.